Welcome back to the rally, everybody. Let's talk some Jim Harbaugh here.
Just celebrated a national title with Michigan. Today, interviewed for the Los Angeles Chargers job. You were just in Michigan covering the celebration. What's your read on the situation? What's the Harbaugh scoop?
All right. Well, I would just like to say first that the celebration, it was awesome. You could just tell it was a sold out crowd there, and Jim Harbaugh, that was the longest I think I've ever seen him speak. It was a very heartfelt message when he was giving his speech. It was funny. He was kind of sticking to the script, and then he went on and was, just addressing the guys, the captains on stage, and it almost gave a feel that it could be a farewell, that it might be his last time speaking to the Michigan fans there. But I just think that, and he had to rush and get on a flight after, and it looks like he had his interview there with the Chargers. But I was thinking that if J.J. McCarthy, the fact that he announced that he was leaving, that's an indication, this is just my opinion, that maybe Jim Harbaugh is thinking about leaving. What do you think, JP?
Yeah, I see it in a very similar sense there. The idea that the quarterback who, in partnership with Jim Harbaugh, got them to the promised land, is now moving on. It feels like there's a changing of the guard. Offensive line is retooling. The wide receiver room, largely unproven. They've got Colson Loveland still, but trying to find who that second tight end is going to be. Blake Corum's now gone. That defense, though, for Michigan, they've got a lot of guys coming back, and especially on that defensive line, they got the best corner in college football, and Will Johnson coming back. So there's some positives, certainly, but I think Jim Harbaugh, now that he has restored Michigan to national prominence, won them a national title, is probably looking at a Super Bowl once again. This was a guy who made it to multiple NFC championship games. He competed in a Super Bowl that he lost to his brother. I think this is something that weighs on him, where he says, okay, I've got the goal of being a college champion as a coach. Now I can go do the same thing in the NFL. And it's going to be hard for him to turn down that opportunity right now after everything he's achieved.
I always wonder about job security, and especially it feels like there's more job security in college football, especially if you're at a destination school, kind of like Michigan, where it's like you, especially after winning a national championship, you can kind of stay there for a long, long time, not so much in the NFL.
Well, Warren McManuel, he spoke and he said that they're trying to give him that 10-year contract, I believe is what they were saying. They're like, I'm trying to get him to stay. And the crowd erupted. And, Jim, he didn't say much. He kind of, just nodded his head. And, just, to make sure that he wasn't giving too much away, depending on what his decision is. But, yeah, there's no doubt that they are trying to get him to stay there in Ann Arbor.
I mean, the numbers that are reported, 10 years, average of 12 million, 12.5 million per year. It does not seem like he is motivated by the financials of this deal. He is a guy who gave money back to the athletic department during COVID. He took a pay cut. He made a lot of money as a ball player, played forever in the league, right? He is not a guy who's over here scrounging for pennies, digging through the couch trying to figure out where he's going to find some loose quarters. I think his mentality is totally different. And the thing that keeps popping up about Jim Harbaugh, and I'm curious how this all ends, is he talked about, I just want to be at a place where I feel respected. And I feel like I'm wanted and appreciated. And you saw Santa Ono, the president of the University of Michigan, very outwardly expressing how they support their coach. Ward Manuel, as you mentioned, very outwardly expressing how much they want their coach. But in the back of my mind, I think about that COVID year. I think about coming out of it where it's like, we're going to take the pay cut here and we're pretty much on a last chance deal and you got to figure things out. Now he's got it all figured out. And does he feel a level of disrespect from that that's going to be really hard to repair as he seeks other opportunities?
He shouldn't. Well, he was treated rightfully based off of how he performed.
I understand that, and I've had this conversation back and forth. I get that, but you know how pride and ego goes. You know how people feel. He probably felt convicted in that moment where he took that pay cut that he was going to be a champion at some point, and they just had it wrong.
Well, and JP, not even just the disrespect that he maybe felt at one point from the university, but just all of college football this past season, feeling like they're coming after him and he's constantly having to prove himself there within college football, and it's like with the change in the transfer portal and the NIL deals, It's a different world. We saw Nick Saban, not to say that that's why he's stepping away, but there's speculation that, with that old school mentality, he's like, I don't want to deal with it anymore. It makes you wonder, does Jim Harbaugh want to go next year and have to deal with all of this stuff?
Well, you talk about disrespect, too. He felt it from his own fan base for a while because those people were calling for his job as well, and not to try to sully a great moment for the University of Michigan and Jim Harbaugh and what he's achieved this year. But a lot of things have changed in the past few years, and I'm sure he's going to do his due diligence on what his next step is going to be.